First Contact with Joshua Put.
Welcome to First Contact Radio. Talk about all these things we're talking about is because in life, everything is energy. Every single thing that's out there.
It's time to demand the truth.
All right, welcome to First Contact Radio, everybody. We made it to the end of another week. Friday, it's the 23rd of October. We're 11 days away from the election. We're 8 days away from Halloween. A lot can happen in this next 11 days, and most likely, anything will. Now, today seems rather uneventful, considering all that we've been, the anticipation of the big debates going on this week. We made it through unscathed. Thought it was a good debate. A lot of the polls today showing President Trump as having more success in that debate, winning the debate. Of course, there are those that still want to favor Joe and show Joe. Some of the big questions that people ask often is, why is it when I see a picture of a Joe Biden rally and I see a handful of people, and then I see a Trump rally where there's thousands of people, why is the news continuing to tell me that this guy that doesn't have hardly anyone there is in the lead? And is that true? Well, we know it's not true. We see with our eyes. But what's going on is the media is trying to play a Jedi mind trick on everybody. This is not the audience you see. Joe is actually in the lead. And they think people are going to fall for that because, you know what, in the past, people have fallen for it. So it's not a surprise that they would expect people are going to continue to do that. But people are getting smarter, and that's a good thing. So let's get into what did happen today and wrap this week up here. This first story, and an important one, another moment of peace that is looks like it's going to happen. Sudan-Israel relations agreed, Donald Trump announces. At the same time, U.S. President Donald Trump has removed Sudan from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism, unblocking economic aid and investment. Announcing the normalization, Mr. Trump said at least 5 more Arab states want a peace deal with Israel. The Sudan deal comes weeks after similar moves by the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain. The 2 Gulf states became the first in the Middle East to recognize Israel in 26 years. Israel and Sudan said in a 3-way statement with the U.S. delegations that they would meet in the coming weeks. Okay, so good stuff there. President Trump continuing to do positive things and have positive effects, not only here in America, but in the world. This story here is an article from CNN, but I wanted to bring it up nonetheless, even though it would be what we would consider fake news. Fake news because they're not really honest in their reporting. President Donald Trump signed an executive order that appears to provide him and his agency appointees more leeway in the hiring and firing of federal employees deemed disloyal, a move that the critics say politicizes civil service and could lead to career officials being pushed out for political reasons. The president has vilified some career officials as the deep state during his term and sought to rid the federal government of people he views as anti-Trump. Critics warned that the order would allow the president to fill the federal workforce with his cronies and reverts the country back to the spoils system. So, of course, that's what they're going to say because they want to make it sound as bad as possible. The executive order issued Wednesday creates a new classification of federal employees titled Schedule F for employees serving in confidential, policy-bearing, policy-making, or policy-advocating positions that typically do not change during a presidential transition. The White House says the directive will give federal agencies more flexibility to hire Schedule F employees, but also to be able to remove poor performers from these roles without going through the lengthy appeals process. The pushback was fierce, with the largest union for federal employees calling the order the most profound undermining of civil service in our lifetimes. Through this order, President Trump has declared war on the professional civil service by giving himself the authority to fill the government with his political cronies who will pledge their unwavering loyalty to him and not to America. And that came from Everett Kelly, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees. Now, if we kind of look at this, it's, we understand where they're going to complain because the president is making it possible that if somebody in a government position is doing a bad job, they could get fired. Whereas how many times have we heard that these government employees can't get fired no matter how bad they do? And how many times do we hear complaints about the poor job they're doing because they know that they can't get fired? Well, this might be something that provides that added incentive or motivation for the employee to do a good job. Because most people, I believe, want to do good jobs, but there are those who, from time to time, decide that they want to buck the system and, milk it for what it's worth. Another Joe Biden story here from the National Pulse. This one, I don't know if it really fits into anything more than gossip or if this is something of significance. But Joe Biden's using a pseudonym, Peter Henderson. And it's not just any old pseudonym made out of nowhere. It's one that has been recognized. Hunter Biden's email account appears to show that his father, former Vice President Joe Biden, used the pseudonym Peter Henderson when trading emails with his family, the National Pulse can exclusively reveal. And here's a little sample of those. And it says, while Biden, or the big guy, has a real name attached to his private account for some time, it changed early 2016, going from Joseph Biden to Peter Henderson in Hunter's emails. It's unclear whether or not the change was on Hunter's end or on Joe's, but Peter Henderson's emails included messages such as, keep in touch, love Dad, and shared links often about Hillary Clinton. In Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan series, Peter Henderson is the name of a KGB mole that infiltrated the U.S. government. So just interesting coincidence or something more. Here we got Rudy Giuliani is getting ready to take some action. Former New York City Mayor and Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani joined Steve Bannon and crew on the War Room Friday morning. During the interview, Rudy went off on the lewd and criminal photos that were on the Hunter Biden laptop. The FBI took possession of the laptop last year and has done nothing. Rudy does not trust the current leadership at the FBI who hid this evidence of child sexual exploitation. It's really shocking that I got to be the one that kicks them in the backside until they admit that they have it. This was a great segment from the War Room on Friday. It's right here if you want to check it out. Also remember that Rudy said that 10 days before the election he was going to be releasing information on Hunter, and guess what tomorrow is? That would be, I guess, tomorrow's 11 days, so tomorrow or Sunday, we should be hearing something interesting from Rudy. We'll find out what that is. We will find out together. All right, in regards to the Supreme Court confirmation, which is going to happen on Monday, they're still doing hearings leading up to that, and Senator Schumer tried some shenanigans today. This here is Senator Schumer's sour grapes. Said the Washington Post reports that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer forced the Senate into a brief and a rare closed session in a last-ditch effort to convince Republicans not to proceed with the confirmation of Judge Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. The Post stated that the Republican majority is on the precipice of making a colossal and historic mistake. Schumer said the damage it does to this chamber will be irrevocable. Schumer painted a party hypocrisy that has no qualms holding up the nomination of Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court in 2016, and yet is rushing through the confirmation of Barrett just over a week before an election in which tens of millions of Americans have already voted. To Republicans, Schumer said, you don't have the right to argue consistency when you're doing what you're doing now. The majority has trampled over the norms, rules, standards, honor, value, and any of them that could possibly stand in its monomaniacal pursuit to put someone into court who will take away the rights of so many Americans. Well, this is all a bit rich coming from Senator Schumer. Let's consider some history. Prior to his arrival in the Senate, senators were generally reluctant to openly opposing judicial nominees on ideological grounds. But Schumer worked to change that. He enthusiastically supported a blockade of Bush, appellate nominees and rejected President Bush's appeal for a presumptive confirmation schedule. Once Republicans took the Senate, Schumer pushed for the repeated filibuster of President Bush's nominees even after the Gang of 14 deal continued in his attempts to use this obstructionist tactic. Schumer led an unsuccessful effort to filibuster confirmation of Samuel Justice Alito to the Supreme Court. Afterwards, in 2007 speech to the American Constitution Society, he proclaimed he should have done more to block Alito's confirmation and argued that the Senate should not confirm any additional Bush nominees to the Supreme Court should any more vacancies arise. In his view, senators should seek to prevent judicial confirmations that might tilt the balance of the court in the way that they do not like, including by simply refusing to confirm them, something we would conveniently forget in 2016. Senator Schumer did not think both parties should have recourse to the same tools of obstruction, however. When Senate Republicans started filibustering some of President Obama's appellate nominees, he eagerly joined the Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's decision to go nuclear, even though Republicans had at that point not blocked any more Obama nominees than Democrats had blocked Bush nominees, which were 5 each. No matter, the filibuster was gone, and 3 of Obama's 5 blocked nominees were confirmed. During the closed session, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell rebuked Schumer for his short memory. I hope our colleague from New York is happy with what he has built. I hope he is happy with where his ingenuity has gotten the Senate. There is no question that McConnell upped the ante over the past 4 years. One might say he hit back twice as hard. Nonetheless, if Schumer is unhappy, he should consider his role in getting to the Senate to this point. Okay, so very, very important, very good words. So Schumer's just crying. That's what we call him, crying Chuck Schumer. All right, here is a Dr. Urso. I'm going to leave this for you so you can check this out. Bombshell HYDROXYCHLOROQUINE, which is abbreviated HCQ, kills an industry better than it kills a virus. You can stop wondering why it gets attacked. Here's the answer. And he's talking about how the hydrochloroquine being so effective will, make it so you don't need to have all of these other medications that are out there. And that's something the pharmaceutical industry doesn't really want you to have to let go of. They want you to keep having the pharmaceuticals. They want you to keep paying for the medicines. And they don't want something as cheap as hydrochloroquine because that defeats the purpose of what it is that they're trying to do, which is get you to pay for that expensive medicine. And here's a little article about what went on. Who is Dr. Richard Urso? Hydrochloroquine claims explained as America's frontline doctors go viral. Over the last few days, a video featuring a group of doctors from America's frontline doctors has made headlines due to claims made in the video that hydrochloroquine could treat patients with COVID-19. Dr. Richard Urso featured in that viral America Frontline Doctors video and received instant social media fame. However, the viral video and claims made about the alleged potential cures have since been removed from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube because Twitter, in their wise decision, has saying that it is false information. However, this is a doctor who's providing this information, and the Twitter is not a doctor but computer guys. While the world, we got to know more about the claims of Dr. Simone Gold and Dr. Stella Emanuel, Dr. Urso has also come forward with similar claims about the drug. So what did he say? Well, according to his LinkedIn bio, Dr. Richard Urso has been a medical doctor at Houston Eye Associates for 28 years. His name is listed on the website of Houston Eye Associates, which says that Dr. Richard completed a BA course in political science at Villanova University. He went on to study medicine at the University of Texas Medical School and completed ophthalmology residency at University of Texas Southwestern in Dallas. If we go down, it says in a recent interview with Fox, Richard addressed the claims he made about hydrochloroquine, saying that he has worked with the drug for the last 30 years. He said, hydrochloroquine is super safe. I particularly have a lot of experience with it. I've had several thousands of patients visit to discuss specifically the toxicity of this drug over my last 30 years. It's been around billions of prescriptions. Well, that kind of got someone's attention. I've been around this drug 30 years. I've never had a patient taken off of it for a heart issue. And it's a great meeting with Mike Pence and the Chief of Staff, Mike Short. Looking forward to working with them and helping to end the pandemic. Doctors should be able to prescribe hydrochloroquine without fear of reprisals. Okay, so there you have it. So hydrochloroquine, check out these stories. If you haven't checked out the Frontline Doctors, you should definitely go watch that video. It was just a couple days ago. I had it up there online. It was last weekend when they were out in front of the Supreme Court. And very fascinating. But here you have a group of doctors, medical professionals, telling you that there are medicines that will cure the COVID problem. Hydrochloroquine is one of those. They tell you the success stories, yet these doctors are being censored by tech experts, people over at Twitter or Facebook that aren't doctors, that are just deciding the information is false or not. Kind of like this was back in the days of George Orwell. It's funny how you've got these liberal organizations run by liberals and Democrats who for years talked about the importance of free speech, talked about being tolerant and letting diversity, that they are the ones who are bringing in the censorship and bringing in all of the restraints that we hear about and have heard about from things like George Orwell. So we'll have to see where this is going to go, but they certainly are not the people who they claim to be. That's for certain. All right, so I want to continue on with a story that's kind of been unfolding over the course of this week. And the story is basically about the history of beings upon our planet. And we know about the Garden of Eden. It's in the Bible that we use as a reference point, and that Bible goes back 6,000 years. However, archaeological digs and artifacts go back much further, which indicate that there was something that occurred prior to that time. And when we look at some of those prior stories of the Anunnaki, we start to see that there is some correlation to those stories from the past with the stories that are in the Bible that we have, which leads one to think that there is something connecting them. And then when we look at the stories in the Bible that are in there, and we look at some of the apocryphal texts that didn't make it into the Bible, but were some of the hidden texts that maybe went underground, well, those texts seem to have fragments of information that is in the Bible, which leads you to think that this information was also known at that time, but was kept out of the Bible. Now, the Bible's a book. It's the inspired Word of God, but it was ultimately put together by men who had political agendas and were fighting for what was going to go in the book and what was going to go out of the book. And at the end, we have a book that is filled with information. There is systems of gematria, which is numeric code, that is put in there that was used by the scholars because they knew that they couldn't outrightly put their ideas, otherwise they'd be ostracized. So there is confirmation in the fact that there's gematria in the book, that there was agendas going on and there was efforts to try to plant the wisdom in the book so others wouldn't take it out. And then, of course, we have teachers like Jesus who tell us that we should seek so we could find. And as we seek and find, we begin to find this inner wisdom, this deep wisdom, which is a wisdom that has been taught by many beings upon this planet, but has remained hidden. Well, the forces of darkness seem to be running rampant, keeping the voices of light and the children of light down. But now here we are at a time where we've evolved. We have the technology, we have the means for a lot of information to come to light. Information is light in itself. And so we have all of this information that allows us the opportunity now to counteract the lies. The only problem is, if the technology we're using these days is the opportunity for lies to be thrown into the mix, which now makes it more challenging. So we really have to seek and we really have to find. But what we have to do in order to seek and find and really understand is we have to be open-minded. Because if we're not open-minded, then we're going to miss some of the information. It's like what I've been saying about some of the basic words, occult. Occult means that which is hidden. It has no value of evil or good. It means something that's hidden. But we've been led to believe that when we hear the word, we're supposed to be afraid of what's hidden behind it. We've been led to believe that there are certain esoteric tools and sciences that are only the work of the devil, as if the devil created something that God didn't create. But that's not accurate. God created all things. The devil just simply takes those things God creates and tries to pervert them. But it's important to honor and remember that there's the true essence of that God force that is always there, that is the original creator. So we look to that source. So yesterday when the discussion led into the description of God, of the Christ energy, of the masculine and feminine energies of God, and that Christ light that flows through, and then on into the discussion of the principles of the three initiates and the seven principles. The first one being that all is mind, and the second that we can correspond with every aspect of that mind because we are interacting and creating in conjunction as co-creators with this mind. And finally, that in this world we're living in, we're manifesting things that we think about. And when we have a media source that is out there creating fear in the world, it is trying to get us to take our energies and turn them towards fear so that we create visions and images of fear. And that's not going to help us at all. So what we need to do is have the images of positivity, of success, to move past that. And that's where the scriptures come in. That's where the esoteric and philosophies come in, and the teachers throughout all of these ages. So Jesus is, one of my favorite all-time teachers, and I know he's for many because of the wisdom that he brought about who he is and exemplifying that Christ light shining through him as the representative of God here on earth, and the authority and power with which he, and confidence with which he brought forth his info. Now, one of the things about Jesus is that there's a period of time where the Bible ends off and we don't hear about him for many years. And during those years, which are often referred to as the lost years of Jesus, he was somewhere. And part of the storyline is, well, he was just there in town growing up. And the other part of the story is that he went and he traveled. And during his travels, he began to study and learn various sciences that were taught throughout the world, so he began to see the things that we're talking about now, the unity of all things, how these different groups and people all connected together even though they were separated by distances, how the esoteric understanding and knowledge was being passed down from one group to the next, and how there were those who were trying to hide it, because that's very important as well, to know how the enemy is trying to hide the information so that you can find it in the case that they're trying to take it away from you or hide it. So we're going to get into a discussion here about the lost years of Jesus, explore a little bit about this. This first part here is just a Wikipedia entry, the unknown years of Jesus. Also called the silent years, the lost years, or missing years, generally refers to the period of Jesus' life between his childhood and the beginning of his ministry, a period not described in the New Testament. The lost years of Jesus concept is usually encountered in esoteric literature, where at times it also refers to a possible post-crucifixion activities, but is not commonly used in scholarly literature, since it is assumed that Jesus was probably working as a carpenter in Galilee, at least some of the time with Joseph from the age 12 to 29. So the years were not lost, and that he did die on Calvary. But in the late medieval period, there appeared Arthurian legends that the young Jesus had been in Britain. And in the 19th and 20th centuries, theories began to emerge that between the ages of 12 and 29, Jesus had visited Kashmir or had studied with the Essenes in the Judea desert. Modern mainstream Christian scholarship has generally rejected these theories and holds that nothing is known about this time. However, investigators, scholars have gone and have found that there is. something to this. So let's take a look at some of these different concepts and ideas. Here we have one of the greatest mysteries in history, what happened to Jesus when he all but disappeared from the scriptures at 12 years of age, only to resurface at around 30 to begin his ministry. Of course, the widely accepted Christian belief is he spent these years plying his trade as a carpenter in Galilee, but there's little reference to that in the Bible. The gaping hole in Jesus' life has led to some theories. The most prevalent ones range from somewhat credible to questionable to absolutely bonkers. Could Jesus have studied Hinduism and Buddhism in India, communed with the Druids in Great Britain, became an adopted son of Japan, or traveled through the Americas? These alternative histories, or alternative facts, if you like, are an industry in themselves. And if any of some were true, it would shatter the beliefs and foundations of Christianity. Okay, so let's take a look at these here. We have one of the most prevalent theories that Jesus trained with mystics in the Himalayas. Russian aristocrat, Cossack officer, spy, and journalist Nicolas Notovitch claimed in an account in 1894 trip to the Himas monastery in Tibet to have seen the 3rd century AD manuscript, The Life of Saint Isa, best of the sons of men, detailing Jesus' missing years. It claims Jesus, called Isa by monks studied under yogis in India, Nepal, and Tibet. Others have also claimed to have set their eyes upon the manuscript, said to remain hidden by Buddhists in the Himalayan monastery. Adding to this theory is the idea that Jesus survived the crucifixion and returned to India and is in fact buried there. The theory that Jesus visited Britain as a young man gained momentum with the poem Jerusalem, written by William Blake, with the verses, "And did these feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountain green? And was the Holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pasture seen?" As legends would have it, Jesus traveled some 2,000 years ago to the West Country with Joseph of Arimathea, a tin trader who some believe was Jesus' uncle. Jesus is said to have studied with Druids in Glastonbury, the idea being that Druidism held some similarities to the Christian faith. The theory has it that Jesus built a chapel there. The documentary "And Did Those Feet posits that Jesus may have come to Britain to further his learning. If someone was wanting to learn about the spirituality and thinking not just of the Jews, but also the classical and Greek world, he would have come to Britain, which was the center of learning at that time. The film's director and producer, Ted Harrington, told The Independent, but admitting there's no archaeological finds that he knows of to back this up. Of course, Britain is at the heart of the Holy Grail legend, the cup said to be used by Jesus at the Last Supper, and in one theory used by Joseph of Arimathea to collect Jesus' blood during his crucifixion. As one Arthurian legend would have it, the medieval military order, the Knights Templars, seized the Holy Grail during the Crusades. Japan was another place. Here's a fascinating idea. The 21-year-old legend has it that Jesus became a disciple of a Buddhist master near Mount Fuji, immersing himself in the Japanese culture and learning the language. But it's what supposedly happened later that is really bonkers. As Smithsonian Magazine reports, a variation on one of the many swoon theories posits that his younger brother Isukuri took the place on the cross. Jesus then returned to Japan with his brother's severed ear and lock of the Virgin Mary's hair, settling down in the northern mountain hamlet of Shingo with a farmer's daughter named Miyuko, and fathered 3 daughters. He grew garlic. He died at age 106. It's a legend that has a huge following. Every year, some 20,000 people of Shingo, also known as Cristo no Sato, which is Christ's hometown, to the supposed site of Jesus' burial, cared for by the local yogurt factory, a modest mound with a cross on top. His brother's ear is said to be interred next door. The Americas. Is this one true? Then Jesus must really have got around. Archaeologist L. Taylor Hansen, in her book He Walked the Americas, explores Native American legend that say a white prophet visited the tribes throughout Peru, South and Central America, Mexico, and North America in his missing years. According to the legends, this white prophet has the ability to speak in thousands of languages, raise the dead, and heal the sick, not unlike biblical descriptions. Okay, that's all that's on this list right here. We have this link here, Jesus in Egypt. This is a video for you to check out. It says the Bible contains a few verses about the years the Holy Family spent in Egypt, their flight from Herod's death sentence, the weary journey, their return to Israel. But what exactly happened to Jesus and his parents in this ancient land of magic and myth? How did the sojourn to Egypt change Jesus' life and influence his teachings? By poring over the narratives of the Apocrypha and the traditions of the Coptic Orthodox Church, Paul Perry was able to follow the Holy Family's route through Egypt, from their entrance across the burning sands of the Sinai Desert to the zigzagging path down to the Nile. Part travel adventure, part spiritual journey, part historical detective story, Jesus in Egypt recounts a modern-day pilgrimage into an ancient and often baffling land, in the basements of Coptic churches and the teeming back streets of Cairo, and shrines thronged by worshippers and desert wastes haunted by saints. Perry turns up shreds of the past, tales passed down through countless generations, and reveals a very different side of Jesus than we get in the Bible. Okay, now we're going to go here. This is Jesus spent his missing years studying Buddhism in India. A journey to Ladakh began one idle summer afternoon in the dusty stacks of a London library. I was browsing the volumes in the theology section when I came upon a 19th century book with an intriguing title, The Unknown Life of Jesus Christ. It was a battered brown quarto written in French by an author with a Russian name, Nicolas Notovitch. Notovitch's book told an astonishing story. He claimed to have discovered an ancient text in the sacred Pali language that revealed previously unknown aspects of Jesus' life. According to this text, which Notovitch has translated into French, Jesus had spent his missing years, the years between his childhood and the beginning of his ministry, studying Buddhism in India. At about the age of 30, he returned to the Middle East, and that life is the familiar one to us from the New Testament. It's clearly an amazing claim. I was surprised that I knew so little of this book or of its mysterious author, but I was able to learn a little more about Notovitch himself. His Wikipedia page claimed he was the son of a Russian nobleman. This, I am certain, is untrue, and the page has since been altered. His book on Jesus had briefly been a bestseller in Europe until publication in 1894, but had been attacked by mainstream theologians, and Notovitch has disappeared from view. Last thing I found out was he had served a prison sentence in Siberia in 1901 for articles he'd written about the Russian government. But I also found books, notably Holter Kirkson's rather loopy Jesus lived in India, that suggested he might have been something to his story. Notovitch said that he had been shown the mysterious manuscript at a monastery called Himas in the region of Ladakh while convalescing from a broken leg. While this area has deep religious and cultural links with Tibet, it's actually part of India. Right up to the 20th century, the altitude and difficult mountain passes preserved the remoteness of Ladakh. It was beyond most people's ken, a distant place that few people ever imagined visiting, but for good or ill, the internet and the expansion of air travel have given us all the 7-league boots. I was able to book a flight direct from Delhi to Leh and find a hotel online in the town center. Himas Monastery, where Notovitch was laid up with his broken leg, stands on a rocky mountainside in a gap in the astonishing Zanskar range of the Himalayas. I arrived there one January morning after a 2-hour flight. The long journey to Leh to from New Delhi and Notovitch's era, the long journey by horse into the Himalayas would have given travelers time to acclimatize to the thin air. You can see there's a lot more to the story here. I'm going to leave that to you. And here we have the Wikipedia entry. It says Nicolas Notovitch was known as, in the West, as Nicolas Notovitch. His name was Shulam or Nikolai Alexokandrovich Notovitch. said he was a Jewish adventurer who claimed to be a Russian aristocrat, spy, and journalist, known for his book claiming during the unknown years of Jesus, he left Galilee for India and studied with Buddhists and Hindus before returning to Judea. His claim was based on a document he had seen at the Hemis Monastery while he stayed there. Okay, and here is the actual book, 208 pages. It's a PDF. We also have another PDF right here, another place where you can check out the book. If we go down, let's just see a little bit here. What we have when we scroll down. Well, it's a big one. I'll even leave that for you. I'll leave this for you here. But it's very fascinating indeed on where did Jesus go? Did he go anywhere? Was he there the whole time? If he was there the whole time, why wasn't anybody, writing about him? He just went and gave this great talk at 12 years of age in the temple to the scholars, and then we don't hear about him anymore. He just went to doing carpentry work. There wasn't any follow-up from that period of time. Some things don't add up. But when you really look into see the wisdom that Jesus had, and you see the different cultures where he went and allegedly studied, he was learning this wisdom that was common to all of us, this wisdom that was common to human beings. And it was a wisdom that has been taught but was pushed aside by those who were trying to push aside the goodness, pushed aside this wisdom. So he was a rebel to bring this all out, and by bringing this forward, he really upset a lot of people in the same way that people are getting upset now because the system of corruption is being challenged. And when someone comes along to challenge that system of corruption, it shakes things up because the corrupt people, who back in those days, the Pharisees, they didn't like it too much. So they plotted against Jesus. They wanted to get rid of him. They didn't want that information out. If it was this day and age, these same Pharisees would be doing what? Censoring people using the technology that we have? Burning books that they didn't like? Probably the same thing. So we can see correlations, what's going on in our world now to what was going on in the past. And in many ways, they're the same. And one of the great passages of Jesus that really kind of sums up a lot of what he was talking about were the Beatitudes. It says, Beatitude is a possession of all things held to be good, from which nothing is absent, and that a good desire may want. Perhaps the meaning of a beatitude may become clearer to us if it is compared with its opposite. Now, the opposite of beatitude is misery. Misery means being afflicted unwillingly with painful sufferings. So here are some beatitudes that Jesus spoke, which has to do then with positive things, blessings. Okay, the opposite of what misery would mean. The things that are going to be beneficial to us. Things that are held to be good. Okay, so Jesus gave this saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now, it's interesting that there's 8 Beatitudes here, because in the study of Buddhism, there's also an 8-fold path that is there. So we could start to look at the fact that there's these numbers that are synchronistic. And I really would, suggest that if you look at the various different faiths that exist in the world, and you start to understand what they're about and spend a little time studying them, you start to find that there's a synchronicity, that they're not all separate, that the different esoteric sciences, though they seem separate, all have some sort of unity somewhere, a oneness. And when we try and are able to find that, it kind of puts a little bit more of this puzzle together for us. And I think it's important putting together the puzzle because, well, things are kind of not all together the way they should be. Now, at one time, it seemed like we had this universal understanding. We go back in time, and the Genesis 11 describes this well. It says, the whole earth was of one language and one speech, and it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. They said to one another, go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And then they said, go, let us build a city and a tower, that it may, whose top may reach up to heaven, and let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad the face of the whole earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. Let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from hence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore it is called Babel, because there the Lord did confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. These are the generations of Shem. Okay, this is next. So there was a period of time where we had this unity, but then something separated us. Now, this is the point where we need to bring in the references to what we discussed earlier when the Garden of Eden, that there were beings that were there that were claiming to be God that weren't. So at this point in time, when we have the Tower of Babel, and we had a being that intentionally is confusing the language of humankind that are there so they can't talk with each other, in many ways you have to consider the possibility, was that a positive thing? Was this one of the beings claiming to be God? And was this some sort of punishment against the people? Were the people getting too close to understanding something? Because as we understand, the God is not down in the human form. The God is that great essence that's all over, that makes up everything. So whoever the beings are running around causing these different events to occur, they, what is their agenda? What is their intent? So I think it's important that we look closely to understand what happened in the past, and is the story we're told exactly as it is? Or is there something more that we need to seek and find? And I challenge everyone to do the seeking and the finding, because it will help you and help all of us to understand more of who we are and what we're about, and how we allow this divine light to shine through us, because that's what we're here to do, to shine the light bright, to be examples of this God force. Now, there are those who are certainly caught up in the darkness, but darkness can be eliminated when the light is turned on. So while there are those that might be confused or uncertain, or maybe in the world of doubt, that can change. And it can change when people are doing the positive things like the prayer and the positivity and stuff. So the one last thing I want to close with for today is something that I think is important. We talked about this at the beginning of the week. And this brings us all back full circle to our thoughts, because it's real easy at times to get all high and mighty in our thoughts and think that we're so lofty with what we can do and our ability to communicate and things that we've learned and so on and so forth. But we have to be able to take all of that wisdom and understanding and put it in its proper perspective, and still know that there is this source that's out there, this divine source, and we need to honor what it is in our life. And part of what is required is us to humble ourselves, to understand that it is through that humility that we receive more of what this energy is, more of what this essence is, so we can share it. If we're not in that place of humility, if it's just all of our ego, then maybe our agendas are out of whack. And this is an intelligent energy that we are communicating with, that has some understanding about our essence, our agendas, and what we're about. So it's always important, the more we learn about the energies around us, the more we learn that the energies around us are alive and breathing and interact with what we're doing just as much as we're interacting with it. So the more that we can get in sync and understand these energies, the better it is for all of us. And that's what all of this is learning about. So this is 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear them from heaven, and I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. Now, I want you to remember that there was the passage where Jesus said that, was talking to the group, and said that ye are of the father is the devil, who has been a deceiver and a liar from the beginning. But Jesus wasn't from that. Jesus said God was who his father was. And he made that differentiation between the two of them. And so, as we're going forth, we need to be wise with those words and understand that there was something that we need to understand about who is here in life, who is teaching us, who's talking to us out there, and are we allowing ourselves to be humble to the universe and what the universe is bringing to us. I feel like I'm rambling right now, so I'm going to go ahead and stop. Let's just take a moment before we go in the weekend. Quick prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for all the blessings that you've provided to our life, to this world. And let us just, all as a people, as a country, as a world, be able to take some time just to decompress and to reconnect with you and the great power and essence that you are, so that we may learn how we all interact and co-create here on planet Earth. In Jesus' name, amen. That's it, my friends. Thank you for being here. I will be back next week. Until then, enjoy the weekend. It's probably going to be a crazy week. We've got the Supreme Court confirmation right off the beginning of the week, and I'm sure we're going to have all sorts of other election updates and information. Trump's doing a lot of rallies this weekend. Check out Right Side Broadcasting. You can just go to RSBN, look them up, and there's a link at First Contact Radio. If you go there, there's a link, I believe it's on the left side, so you can go to them. And enjoy your weekend, and I'll be back. Peace. I'm out of here.